I don't know if you noticed, but I missed a couple Sundays. 2 Sundays ago, I was with some of our high schoolers at the Sierra Pacific Synod High School Retreat at Mount Cross in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Our theme was breaking down the walls. And so, through our speaker, and our devotions, and our workshops, we dealt with many isms. During one workshop on ageism, we were all sitting in a circle, and the discussion leaders asked us to go around the circle and to tell them if we could choose any one age to be for the rest of our lives, what would we pick? It's an intriguing question. Think about it. What age would you choose? Well, it wasn't entirely unpredictable that the majority of teenagers there chose 21. And a few upped it to 25. And their explanation was that they thought at that age they would be free. Yes, free to drink, but also free from their parents' rules and free from school. A few in the group reminisced about an age of innocence and chose either 5, 8, or 10. And as they saw it at those ages, you would be free from stress that comes with school and with growing up. Well, those of us in our 30s, we chose the exact age we are now, because we all had children and wanted to be free to still have our children. And the one gentleman who was in his early 60s, he chose 65, thinking that then he would be retired and free to come and go as he pleased. It seems, in case you didn't notice, there was this common theme that we were all desiring this mystical freedom that seems to elude us all. And the grass always seems greener on the other side. Because those of us who were no longer in our 20s, I have to admit, we snickered under our breath at the idea that you would be free just because if you were lucky enough to not still be living with your parents and out of school, well, you're just trading those in for bosses and landlords and bill collectors. And I still can't figure out how to get my parents to stop giving me advice. And some of the teenagers might remember what I am reminded of every day by my 5-and-a-half-year-old. That young elementary age still has many stressful times on the playground. And it gets very tiresome when everyone is older than you and everyone is telling you what to do. Those of us with children, well, we can forget freedom. Because they become our #1 priority. And we don't get to do what we want whenever we want. When we were at Disneyland, the kids were not content to just sit patiently while Matt and I went on a ride that they weren't tall enough for. So you don't get all that freedom. And no disrespect intended, but for the senior crowd, well, the teens were having trouble imagining freedom without their youthful energy and physical fitness. So we might wonder what we would do with this freedom if we had it. But we also maybe need to come to terms with the idea that there is no perfect age where others aren't putting their demands on us. But still, we are here tells us that we are, in fact, free. The disciples that he was speaking with, well, they seem to have forgotten their history of being slaves to Pharaoh. And that right at that moment, the Romans were constantly breathing down their necks. And I'm guessing they weren't too fond of the idea that we all are constantly living out patterns of selfishness, where we are turned inward on ourselves in sin, bent over, oblivious to the world around us. And Jesus, the truth, who taps us on our shoulder. And yet in that moment, Jesus gives them a gift. Because Jesus is the truth. And so it is only when we can see ourselves clearly through God's eyes that we can realize just how hunched over we have become. And just how beautiful we are made when Jesus lifts us up in grace and makes us free. This freedom that the confirmants who are getting ready to affirm their baptisms and claim for themselves what it means to be a child of God. You will hear from them that they feel free. Free from constantly worrying and stressing about failure and about sin. And then because of that forgiveness that they are given, they are free to forgive, even when it doesn't seem deserved. And here in this place, they are free to have their voices heard and free to belong. And free to trust that God is with them, even in the most tragic experiences. And free to know that God is beside them wherever they go. And that they can live out that freedom with compassion and mercy. And they are free to hold the scripture and to read it for themselves. And to continue to grow and seek and commit to God. Freedom, as we saw, as we learned about from 495 years ago, when Martin Luther took a stand for what was true and just and right. Jesus gives us this gift of grace at every age, where we are redeemed from the sin and law, broken free from those chains. So let's make every moment count and not put off until tomorrow how we will live out